Hello again, humans. It is I, Jim the Ape. And today I'm going to be inadvertently helping the humanarchy perpetuate the cycle of violence against animals by beating a metaphorical dead horse. I know, I need to check my primate privilege. But anyway, this particular special snowflake was the runner-up of my recent Twitter poll that I referred to as the androgynous imp. In fact, they were the only other option, and they got 0% of the one vote that was cast. And you may be wondering why I'm using the plural/gender neutral pronouns when I already know who the person is. Well, that's because they happen to be a self-proclaimed transgender person, but I question the sincerity of that claim. After all, it does get you attention, as well as the now coveted victimhood status of being an oppressed minority, but you can decide for yourself if you think it's legit. Let's get started.
Good morning, easily offended millennials.
Well, at least you know your audience, except for apes like me who only watch people like you to laugh at you and occasionally refute your arguments.
I hope you like my new background. I call this, "My city is experiencing historic flooding, and all of my valuables are on my bed in case my house floods, so I make do with what I can."
I really don't care about what's in the background because I don't have ADD, and I'm skipping your little intro clip because it's pointless, and because the combination of the music you chose and the gibberish nonsense words that appear on the screen equals an unnecessary headache for me that I would just rather not have to deal with when I'm editing this video.
This video is going to include discussions about racism.
Yay! I can't wait!
And because I am white, none of these thoughts about racism in this video are my original thought.
Because white people can't have original thoughts about race. That'd just be racist!
That's racist!
And you could probably argue that no one's thoughts are truly original at this point, but that's not important to the substance of this video. Moving on.
I accredit to most of the ideas that I have picked up from these two videos created by two very lovely black YouTubers.
If by very lovely you mean incredibly racist, then yes, they are that. I think the one on the right is even referred to as Black Hitler. But I'm not about ad hominem, and those two videos are not what I'm responding to right now. So let's forget about them and just focus on you, the scrawny white androgynous imp, and the specific ideas that you're espousing in this video. And if they are also espoused in those two videos, then you can apply my rebuttals there as well, because I respond to ideas, not people. The occasional insult is just thrown in to spice things up a bit.
So go and check them out, please, because they're lovely and awesome, and why not?
Get on with it!
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it!
All white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic.
Do I even have to say anything here? I think the stupidity of that speaks for itself, and I also think that's the reason so many rational people have been making response videos to you. Because arguments like that are, on the face of them, horribly dumb, and they show the gigantic flaws in social justice to people who aren't even paying that close attention. Seriously, just show that clip to anyone who doesn't really care about these discussions, and after they ask you what the hell cis people are, they'll agree that all three of those statements are completely and utterly retarded.
All members of a majority are biased against the members of the minority.
I am so glad you phrased it that way, because now I get to prove you wrong. I mean, besides the absurdity of your claims. See, all it took was a quick Google search for world population by race, and it turns out that the countries with the highest populations, by far, are China, India, and Africa. Okay, that's a continent, but whatever. The point is that those countries contain mostly people that you would consider ethnic minorities because they're not white. So, Milo, who isn't fabulous, are you saying that all Chinese people, Indian people, and Africans are racist against Americans? Because I think you're audience would take issue with that claim if indeed that was the one you were making. But no, it's only white people that can be racist, only men can be sexist, etc., etc.
Or oppressed group.
Ah, so it's all about who's oppressed, huh? Tell me, by what standard can we objectively determine who is and is not oppressed? Because as far as I can tell, it's just a buzzword used by people like you to say that certain groups of people are victim classes and certain other groups are oppressors by your subjective opinion. So I really would like to see an unbiased set of criteria that can be measured scientifically and verified outside of ideological presupposition.
In fact, most people are racist, misogynistic, transphobic, ableist, etc.
It's et-cetera. E.T. Like the fucking Spielberg film. But speak for yourself, you fucking bigot. And I think it's telling that you said misogynistic instead of sexist, because in your mind, they're one and the same. But misogyny is specifically the hatred of women, and misandry is the hatred of men. By the way, Microsoft Word recognizes the word now, so progress, I guess. Sexism can go either way. And don't give me that prejudice plus power bullshit, because it's just an assertion that said power structures even exist, and it's a twisted definition designed to suit your narrative.
I am racist, classist, ableist, and I probably contribute to many other systems of marginalization that I am not aware of.
I don't even have to say anything here. It's like you're making an ad hominem attack against yourself.
Words like racist, misogynistic, and transphobic are not insults.
Yes, they are. They're often used in an attempt to silence dissent by shaming the other person for being bigoted when they actually aren't. And if you're attempting to dilute those words to mean all the little cognitive biases people have that aren't so much hatred as they are just different reactions to different stimuli, then that's an entirely different problem. If you call everyone who isn't Jewish a Nazi, it kind of makes the actual Nazi party not seem like a big deal, because you've broadened the term so much. If you call everyone a rapist just for looking at you funny, then it takes away the gravity of actual rape and turns it into a fucking joke. And that's exactly what you're doing to the words racist, misogynist, and transphobe right now. You're trivializing them and diluting their actual meaning.
Nor are they stereotypes or generalizations. Rather, they are facts about the way we are socialized in a Western society.
Oh, I'm sorry. Western civilization is the problem. Oh, the evils of the first world. Tell me something then. Would you prefer the Middle East?
And in most other societies.
I see. The whole world is fucked, everybody. Get out while you can, because we're all fucking racists!
I talk mostly about Western societies because that is what I have the most experience with.
I guess, more so than any other society, but I'd hardly call 17 years of middle-class white suburbia real-world experience. Also, experience does not equal expertise.
Saying that we're all raised to believe that gender is defined by anatomy and chromosomes.
Oh, for fuck's sake, it's chromosomes! With an M. And unfortunately, gender has become a meaningless concept because people like you have co-opted it to mean anything your schizophrenic imaginations could dream up. However, biological sex is an inescapable fact of existence. A majority of sentient life on Earth, humans and apes alike, are sexually dimorphic species. Now, in case you're not familiar with that term, it means that there are two distinctive sets of each species, male and female, and said species reproduces when one male and one female copulate and thus reproduce sexually. It happened over millions of years of evolution by natural selection. No one decided it, it's just reality. So fucking deal with it.
Is not a stereotype. It's a fact about how we are raised.
No, it's a fact about fucking reality. See preceding rant.
Even if you have liberal parents or teachers who teach you about gender identity, you still come into contact with the idea of biological gender through the media or through interactions with other people.
Hear that, folks? Even if you're indoctrinated into the church of social justice, you're still a sinner. What's the name of that one feminist that actually died? Oh yeah, Valerie Solanas. She wrote the Scum Manifesto scripture, tried to slay the beast that was Andy Warhol, and then died for your sins. Give your life to feminism. It is the one true path to salvation. Okay, sarcastic jabs at religion aside, it's biological sex. I don't know if you're afraid of that word or if you think it's an oppressive construct of rape culture or whatever, but that's what it's called. Also, you don't just learn about the birds and the bees from media and social interaction. It's an undeniable fact of life that is woven into our instincts as apes because we are both sexually dimorphic species that reproduce sexually. I fear I may be repeating myself at this point, but your pre-recorded video is learning nothing from my previous rebuttals.
Even if you are raised by open-minded people, you will still be psychologically affected by living in a society built on imperialism.
You want to talk about being psychologically affected? And by imperialism, no less. See, the reason that's funny to me is that modern day feminism, social justice, cultural Marxism, whatever you want to call it, has become a cult-like ideology with no real intention of changing anything for the better. Its proponents are only interested in silencing dissent and spreading the ideology like a virus, or like the Borg from Star Trek.
Which, by the way, created cisnormativity and heteronormativity.
I really hate those words. It is normal to have your brain match the body it was born in. It is also normal to be driven to procreate as it keeps the species alive. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with homosexuality or people who suffer from gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. But just because there's nothing wrong with those things doesn't make them the norm either.
A 2012 study, which I will link below.
Holy shit, a study! And a citation is given, no less. I found the unicorn, everybody! I found the one social justice warrior who actually gave a citation! Now let's see how objective this study is and how intellectually honest you are in presenting its findings.
Observed how white people empathize with black people less than we do with other white people, because our minds register their pain as being less severe than it actually is.
Okay, the study is actually quite a lot to read through, and I don't have a lot of spare time to go through and look at everything. Also, it's arguable that it doesn't have much to do with what you're saying anyway. So this might be a cop-out, but I basically just read the abstract. But that said, that it wasn't necessarily a bias based on race per se, but that it might have more to do with perceptions of status and privilege or hardship. I'll link the study in the description, in addition to linking Milo's video, the description of which also links to the same study. So anyone watching this video can read it if they're interested, and decide whether it's worth looking into, and I'm just an intellectually lazy idiot, or if it's a total non sequitur, or somewhere in between.
We're raised to believe that black people are lesser.
Oh, really? Because I was raised to believe that all humans are equally inferior to apes like myself. Regardless of the melanin in your skin, there's still not enough hair on your body to be in my league.
And that they're more likely to be dangerous to us.
Okay, if there is any truth to that, and I don't know that there is, it would be because of higher crime rates in impoverished areas. Areas which may be populated mostly by black people. Which begs the question, is there some kind of correlation between being black and being in poverty? What is the reason for it? Is there some kind of causation there? And if there is a causation, what can be done to fix that problem, i.e. lower the crime rates and help the poor? I don't know the answers to those questions, but it's a discussion worth having.
Even though history has proved the opposite to be true.
Isn't the appeal to history a fallacy? I'm pretty sure it is. Look, I'm not saying that history means nothing at all, but what's more important to me is what's happening in the here and now. And I don't think there's a widespread problem of white people oppressing black people in the current year. In fact, with the existence of Black Lives Matter and other groups, I think there stands a decent chance of the exact opposite of that happening in the not too distant future. But that's just a theoretical possibility. I'm not saying that it's actually going to happen.
We're raised to believe that gender is based on biology.
It is. See my previous arguments about sexual dimorphism.
And that features that are typically associated with one sex are repulsive or shocking on the other binary gender.
I think evolutionary psychology can explain that. In short, men developed strong characteristics to impress women so that they could mate with them and pass on their genes. Women, however, have been the selectors of who to mate with, so they haven't had to work as hard. So they developed weaker, more delicate characteristics. In a way, I think that makes effeminate men seem like weak, pathetic losers with no chance of passing on their genes, and it makes strong women look like butch lesbians who would rather be men. Or something like that. I'm no expert. And I personally have no feelings on the matter. I don't care. Do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone.
Especially when it comes to transgender women.
Well, yeah, that's because they generally want to rid themselves of their male genitalia. A prospect that, to most men, seems incredibly masochistic and terrifying. I think some would rather off themselves entirely than to lose that particular part of their anatomy.
Beauty standards affect everyone's psychology. And cisnormative beauty standards are no exception.
Well, the easiest solution to this first world problem is one that I've advocated many times before. Just stop giving a shit what other people think of you. Or, to phrase it another way, don't require other people's approval to be who you want to be.
If you followed me this far, and you agree that all people are psychologically affected by marginalization,
I don't know what that means. I have a headache and I want to die. But go on.
but you disagree with calling these biases racism or transphobia or misogyny.
I do. Because like I said before, that trivializes and dilutes the meanings of those words.
Then there's really no point in arguing further.
Oh. Okay. That was shorter than I expected. Freedom!
Once a discussion boils down to disagreement over the definition of a word, it's probably not going to be very productive.
And yet that's exactly what you're doing here. And it's exactly what dictionary-obsessed feminists do all the fucking time. God damn it, I thought I was done with you.
However, I will make an argument for why I believe we should view racism, transphobia, and misogyny from a wider lens.
Is it so you can say everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out? You know, like feminist Pope Anita Sarkeesian said?
Because when you start learning about systems, everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
And you can feel free to respectfully disagree with me.
Thanks to a little something called the First Amendment, I don't need your permission to disagree, nor do I have to do so respectfully. Although, I do try to keep the insults to a minimum, because I believe that the ideas are more important than the person saying them. So, I'm not against a bit of disrespect now and then, but when I do it, it's more for entertainment purposes, and you shouldn't take it too personally.
I think that when people hear words like racism, transphobia, and misogyny, they think of blatant, unapologetic hate.
As well they should. That's pretty much exactly what those words mean. Sure, there's more subtle ways to be a racist, a sexist, or a transphobe, and at least some bigots are aware enough of the wrongness of those beliefs that they try to conceal them, or, I don't know, twist the definitions of their particular brand or brands of bigotry so that they can't be bigots by their own biased definitions. Gee, I wonder what kind of people, what kind of ideology might be doing that.
Like violently attacking someone because of their identity.
But what if their identity is the Joker? Does that make Batman a cholera-phobe?
Certainly people who commit violent hate crimes are very, very bad people.
Plot twist! Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
However, I believe to properly dismantle systems of oppression, we must acknowledge that being racist or transphobic or misogynistic or ableist or whatever does not make you a bad person.
And that is where I disagree. I mean, I disagreed before, but now I'm disagreeing on 2 counts. One is that I think anyone who legitimately hates someone because of their race, their sex, their nationality, their religion, or some disability or disorder they may be suffering from, including gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder, and hates them for one or more of those things and no other reason, well, I think that they are a bad person because irrational hatred is a very negative thing. I don't have time to thoroughly explain why, but I think most people can at least agree on that. The other thing I must disagree with is that these so-called systems of oppression even exist. As with everything else that I don't believe exists, I'm waiting for some empirical evidence to back up that claim. The old Steve Shives chestnut of just look around you isn't going to work. Not for God, not for patriarchy, not for rape culture, and most certainly not for your conspiracy theories about multiple kinds of oppression being perpetuated by the nebulous concept of systems. So to propose an alternative to the catchphrase of a recently maligned talking deer, evidence please.
By being afraid to call ourselves racist, we are failing to acknowledge how our biases contribute to systematic racism.
SJWs are more than happy to call other people racist, especially white men, as a way to shut down discussion and declare themselves the winner. The reason this sometimes works is the same reason people don't call themselves racists. It's because racism is, on the surface of it, irrational and stupid, and I would argue that there is a huge chasm of difference between some benign cognitive biases, which may or may not even be real, and straight up hating someone because of the color of their skin. That difference is why there are different words to describe those things. And again, I'm going to have to say that I don't buy your claims of systematic racism without evidence.
Microaggressions are mocked as not really being a big deal.
Because they're not. For elaboration on this, see my shitty first response video on this channel entitled Microaggressions. Here's why they're retarded. It's shitty mostly because it was in the pre-cartoon Avatar days, before I started editing my audio, and I was still trying to find my style of videos. So the content might be very different from how I would respond to the same video at this stage. Also, it lacks some of the bells and whistles, like the rainforest ambiance and the outro music. Anyway, link is in the description if you haven't already seen it.
So we fail to acknowledge when they do legitimate harm.
Evidence, please.
Yes, there have been a lot of police officers who have been outed as members of the KKK.
Okay, I'm not saying they shouldn't be outed, as I think that's probably good information for the public to have. But is the KKK really doing anything substantial these days? I think they've all but been laughed and shamed out of existence by now. And similar to the Westboro Baptist Church, I don't see the harm in letting even the most disgustingly hateful groups of people exercise their freedom of speech. Because if censorship is ever allowed to happen, that'll be the speech they come for first. Because almost everyone agrees that it's horrible. That's why it needs to be protected. One day, it's only the racists and homophobes being censored. The next thing you know, it's anyone who criticizes leaders. And the next, it's anyone who doesn't agree with the hive mind. I've gone off on a tangent, but I think you get my point.
But not every police officer who has harmed an unarmed Black or Latinx person has been a member of the KKK.
Yeah, I'd say that's fairly obvious. But sometimes shooting an unarmed person is justified if they're charging at you or quickly reaching for something that could easily be a weapon. That's why you should not make any sudden movements when in the presence of a police officer. Anyway, incidents like that should be looked at on a case-by-case basis. I know there are some very bad cops on the force who will take any opportunity they can get to bash someone's head in, but there are also some very decent people in uniform who are legitimately trying to help their community. I think demilitarizing the police might be a good idea, as would improving the psychological screening for recruits. Ultimately, I'm not going to make a broad generalization about cops, but I think statistically, cops in America kill more white people than any other demographic. Just some food for thought.
Subconscious biases are the reason why we're more likely to see a Black person holding a cell phone or toy gun and think we see a dangerous armed person.
Well, in the case of toy guns, they're kind of supposed to resemble real guns, to varying degrees. I know they're supposed to have a bright orange cap to distinguish them from real guns, though my pet human drew over said caps with permanent marker as a kid. Come to think of it, he's lucky he didn't get shot. Then again, his childhood was before the world was gripped by fear over terrorism and mass shootings. And as far as cell phones go, everyone has one of those. Although, it doesn't exactly help matters that they too are small black objects approximately the same size, and some idiot thought it was a good idea to make a smartphone case that looks like the handle of a pistol. I think anyone dumb enough to sport one of those deserves the Darwin Award that will no doubt be engraved on their tombstone.
And they're also to blame for the fact that many victims of police brutality were never given the medical treatments that could have saved their lives.
No, I think asshole cops are probably the culprit there. I don't know. What are you talking about again?
Microaggressions are also to blame for the fact that transgender women are stereotyped as being sex workers.
I don't know if that happens here, but perhaps have you heard of a little place called Bangkok, Thailand? Because there are these people referred to as ladyboys, and they quite literally are transgender women who are also sex workers. Well, I don't know if they identify as women psychologically, but they sure do dress and act like them.
Which hurts people like Megan Taylor, who was jailed for 8 days after the hotel she was staying at wrongfully reported her.
Cool story, bro. But anecdotal evidence is anecdotal, and not very good evidence.
If we refuse to classify people who hold biases and stereotypes as racists or transphobes, then we're not acknowledging how damaging less blatant racism and transphobia can be.
Biases and stereotypes exist for a reason. I'm not saying they're all accurate or that there's nothing wrong with them, but they have to start somewhere. And more often than not, it's a lazy generalization based on tendencies within a particular group. Or, in the case of individual biases, it may be one based on personal experience. Either way, there's at least some basis in fact. Now, if you ask me, I'd say that doesn't warrant the kind of words you're talking about, because those words describe outright hatred, fear, or prejudice. Expanding the definition to include everyone dilutes the meaning to the point where it becomes a pointless word because it describes too many people. And as for less blatant racism, well, I don't know what you're trying to advocate here, but at least from a legal standpoint, I don't believe in legislating ideas. I think that even blatant racism has a place in the open marketplace of ideas, if only to be shown for the idiotic notion that it is and laughed off by any rational humans until only the most backward-thinking, hopeless retards in the world still think it's a good idea. Also, what's that old saying? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So, if microaggressions are hurting your precious fee-fees, here's an idea. Grow a thicker skin and realize that even being an asshole on purpose is a guaranteed right, as is saying something back about how offended you are. But being protected from words that offend you is not a constitutional right.
And we're not forcing people to become aware of their own microaggressions.
Forcing people? That sounds a bit mind-rapey to me. And like I've said before, microaggressions are just pointless, trivial little things that coddled little infants such as yourself just subjectively decide are the most offensive things in the world. Like, oh my god, he said my hair looked nice. What an oppressive thing to say when bald people exist. It's literally that stupid.
The whole point of acknowledging that we're racist, transphobic, misogynistic, etc.
Etc. Son of a bitch. Look, if you want to say you're those things, awesome. It's great when a bigoted ideologue admits that they're a bigot. But before you go calling the whole world racist, just start with yourself. Maybe change your channel description to Milo Stewart, racist, transphobe, misogynist. Unless you have some kind of fucked up mind trick that allows you not to include yourself in everyone. Or maybe you were just using the royal we.
It's so that we can better recognize our biases and work to overcome them.
I'm about to blow your fucking mind. Are you ready? What if the belief that all white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all normal people are transphobic? What if all those beliefs are, in and of themselves, oppressive biases that need to be overcome?
So those are my thoughts. I don't normally speak on issues that I feel like black people can much more eloquently and originally speak on.
If their videos on the subject are anything like the one I just watched, then they can't.
But I had a lot of people coming to my channel wanting to know why I said all white people are racist.
Because you're an ideologically indoctrinated moron with no real-world experience and you came across some Black Lives Matter-style anti-white racists on the internet and were gullible enough to believe them?
So this is why, please go check out some other channels.
Yes, please check out my channel. After all, it's the best one on YouTube. Check out my stupid lazy pet humans channel where he hardly ever makes any videos, thankfully, because he sucks. Check out my avatar artist's channel. Check out Failure Accomplished's channel, who I've been doing live streams with. And check out the channel of my furry new friend, the Canadian beaver known as Confused Canuck. I might be doing a collaboration of some sort with him in the future. I will put all those links in the description, and will probably regret saying that I would while doing so. Anyway, that concludes the substance of Milo's video. She just awkwardly plugs the channels she mentioned before for the last 20 seconds. And yeah, I can't be bothered to use male pronouns because I'm not convinced that Milo is legitimately transgender. It all seems too much like a cry for attention or a desperate grab for victim points. And if it's the former, I guess I'm giving her what she wants. Oh well. So that'll do it for me. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Something I failed to mention before in previous response videos is that I don't condone my audience going and downvoting the original video, especially since you increase its view count by doing that. So just know that if you do that, it's without my consent. Don't rape other people's videos in my name, humans. Of course, if you don't like this video, you can give this one a thumbs down because I don't give a shit. For more specific feedback, the comments section exists. And if you like my videos, subscribe to see them on the homepage as I upload them. I don't have a schedule, I just make videos when I feel like it. Don't rush me! Anyway, I'll catch you next time. Stay great, apes.